Good afternoon. It's Monday, November 16th. I'm Alana Pranjic. Welcome to Sked Live. Here's what's making news today. Raids continue across France and Belgium today as police search for suspects in last Friday's deadly attacks in Paris. Authorities in Belgium are on the hunt for Salah Abdeslam, who is believed to have helped carry out the attacks in Paris on Friday. Police searches in one part of Brussels have been increased since 2 of the Paris suspects were identified as having lived there. Over 20 people have been detained in over 160 raids, and at least 104 people were placed under house arrest. Iraqi intelligence warned government officials of a probable attack the day before the tragedies in Paris. Officials confirmed the warning sent by the Islamic State group, specifically alerting France in the dispatch. French intelligence said they get warnings of attacks all the time, and they had no specifics on when or where the attacks would take place. France has also launched an attack of airstrikes on ISIS locations in Syria. The airstrikes came as a response 2 days after a series of terrorist attacks in Paris last Friday. A spokesman for France's defense ministry said 20 bombs were dropped and all targets were destroyed. The targets in Syria included a recruitment center, an ammunition storage base, and a training camp for ISIS. Following the attacks in Paris, Prime Minister Trudeau announced that he will not change his stance on accepting refugees into Canada. Anas Sadiq has the story.
In the wake of terror attacks in Paris, which left over 100 dead, concerns are being raised about the resettlement of refugees in Canada. Prime Minister Trudeau has said he stands behind his government's plan to resettle 25,000 Syrian refugees in Canada by the end of the year. One of the attackers was found to have what appeared to be a Syrian refugee's passport on his person. Now, this has raised concerns about the vetting procedures regarding refugees and whether Canada should continue its plan to resettle these refugees.
Certainly there's going to be a lot of psychological counseling that's going to be needed for people who have been through what a lot of the refugees themselves have been through. So, and just I think as a community, not just leaving it for the counseling staff, but as a community, the college students, staff need to be open and welcoming, but also open in terms of listening to experiences and talking to potential refugees about the experiences that they've had prior to coming to Canada.
Humber students have mixed opinions on the matter.
I can understand why people would be concerned and feel afraid. I personally don't feel afraid. I just think that it's unfortunate that this whole ISIS thing just keeps reoccurring, these attacks on people. I think it's unfortunate that he was found with that Syrian passport. So, because I think that that's the kind of thing that people will focus on. I come from an immigrant family. I know that it can be very difficult to find your place in Canadian society. So I guess you got to work twice as hard just to be okay.
I do believe some safety checks, like criminal records, something it should be performed because people here are terrified as well. Even if 1 out of 10,000 refugees will be ISIS member eventually, it is kind of a disaster. So I'm not saying by any means that countries should stop taking refugees, but some safety procedures, it is necessary. That's what I think.
Some have pointed out that the refugees are often fleeing the very same people who commit these horrendous acts. Now, this has brought to the fore concerns about Canada's withdrawal of troops from the conflict against the Islamic State. Anas Sadiq, skedline.com.
Thanks, Anas. In other news, Lebanese government arrested the terror network behind the suicide bombings in southern Beirut. 2 suicide bombers killed 43 people and injured over 200 more just before the attacks on Paris. Originally, the group was targeting a hospital, but plans were altered due to heightened security. The network included 7 people, including the 2 bombers. Meanwhile, at approximately 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, world leaders meeting in Turkey took a moment of silence to honor the victims from the Paris attacks. A moment of silence took place in France as well, including the Sorbonne University, where French President François Hollande gathered with hundreds of students. People around the world are also showing support to those affected by this past weekend's multiple attacks via social media. Raven Benwaite has the story.
People globally have been showing their solidarity with France and expressing their emotions through social media after the attack. Over the weekend, Paris faced a terrorist attack claimed by ISIS, leaving 129 dead and 352 injured after shootings, grenades, and suicide strikes. Viral symbols have spread on Twitter and Facebook. French artist Jean Julien created a peace symbol that is circulating around social media to honor Paris. People have also been putting a tricolor filter of France's flag on their Facebook profile pictures to support Paris. There have been different reactions from social media users.
My personal opinion is definitely a little bit on the cynical side. I think that just by changing your profile picture colors, you're not actually contributing.
Within the media, Facebook bringing those flags up on everyone's profile pictures was a great idea. It just brings everyone together to support everybody who's going through such a hard time there. A lot of it is unfortunate because there are other bombings that are going on across the world that are just really not being brought to everyone's attention, and a lot of that has to do with the media.
I definitely believe that social media is a huge part of today's world, and whatever happens, what happened in Paris, what happens in Beirut, what happened during 9/11. I mean, the whole spectrum and shift from the traditional media to social media, and everybody having their own opinion of how to go forward when it comes to dealing with domestic terrorism as well as regular terrorism versus, back in 9/11 when no one really had an opinion or no one could state their opinion online. It really shows how opinionated everybody is, and the platform in terms of social media that we have to display that opinion.
Famous landmarks around the world also lit up in blue, white, and red in solidarity of France. Today, many European countries held a minute of silence at 11 a.m. to show a sign of respect and pay tribute to those who lost their lives and loved ones. Support will continue to be shown around the world. This is Raven Benwaite, skedline.com.
Thanks, Raven. Now let's go to Shay Koshi with entertainment.
As you heard in the news, on Friday, Paris declared a state of emergency due to tragic attacks. Artists such as One Direction, Justin Bieber, and Madonna paid tribute to those that died. One Direction held a moment of silence at their London concert on Saturday for all those that were affected by the attacks. Justin Bieber and Madonna held a 6-minute speech during their concert in Stockholm.
Now, before we do go on, I would like to have a moment of silence where all of us just for 1 minute bow our heads in respect and say a prayer for the victims who died last night.
U2 also cancelled their remaining Paris shows in the wake of the attacks. While we're talking about change in entertainment, CBS has rescheduled episodes of Supergirl and NCIS Los Angeles due to the touchy content arising from Friday's deadly attacks in Paris. The episode of Supergirl that was supposed to air this Monday featured scenes of bombings and will be replaced with an episode focusing on the U.S. Thanksgiving holiday. NCIS Los Angeles, the law enforcement drama that was also scheduled to air Monday, depicted a fictional extremist organization and was also cancelled. In its place, the network said that it would broadcast an episode unrelated to warfare or religious extremism. In other news, this weekend's box office featured many highlights along with a few disappointments as well. The thrilling action and drama hit movie Spectre ranked first place, bringing in $35 million. The family fun favorite Charlie Brown movie Peanut brought in $24 million. And By the Sea, directed, written, and starred by Angelina Jolie, was a big disappointment at the box office, bringing in $94,000. Spotlight, a film surrounding investigative journalism, also made its debut in select theaters, bringing in $1 million. The feature film and Oscar frontrunner Spotlight shines its light on the true story surrounding Catholic Church scandals covered by the Boston Globe newspaper. The 2001 story of the elite team of Boston Globe journalists was partially filmed inside Toronto's abandoned Sears warehouse. The newly released film features an all-star cast including Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, and Toronto's own Rachel McAdams. There seems to be a lot of buzz surrounding this movie, so be sure to catch the flick at your local theaters. Now back to you, Sabrina Ruda, with sports.
Thanks, Shay. The Toronto Blue Jays have signed Marco Estrada to his first big deal, signifying a major move of the offseason. The former Milwaukee pitcher, who was traded for Adam Lind in 2014, signed a 2-year, $26 million contract with Toronto this past Friday. Estrada avoided salary arbitration when he signed to a 1-year, $3.9 million contract earlier this year. The agreement comes a week after the Jays extended his 1-year, $15.8 million qualifying offer. Holly Holm landed a shocking victory at UFC 193 on Saturday, knocking out former champion Ronda Rousey. The fight in Australia had an energetic start, with Holm landing powerful shots to the unbeaten Rousey's head. Rousey attempted to dominate the second round, but Holm's massive roundhouse kick instantly dropped her opponent to the canvas. Rousey was unbeaten through 12 UFC fights before her face-off with Holm. Winning this fight would have been her 7th straight title defense. Two important CFL games over the weekend. The Hamilton Tiger Cats beat the Toronto Argonauts 25-22 yesterday in the East Division semifinals. The Argonauts led most of the way, but in the fourth quarter, the Tiger Cats made a comeback with place kicker Justin Medlock. He scored a 46-yard field goal in the final play, sending the Ticats through to the next round to face the Ottawa Red Blacks. Out west, the Calgary Stampeders trampled the BC Lions 35-9 in yesterday's division semifinal. The Stampeders are one step closer to their second Grey Cup win. The team will travel to Edmonton to face the Eskimos next Sunday. This game will determine who makes it to this year's Grey Cup in Winnipeg. Still in football, the Cincinnati Bengals face Houston Texans tonight at Paul Brown Stadium. The Bengals enter this week as one of the only 3 undefeated teams, having previously struggled against the Texans in recent years. Houston enters the week only a half game behind the Indianapolis Colts in the AFC Southern Division with a record of 3-5. The game begins at 8:30 p.m. Turning to hockey, 2 Canadian NHL teams lost against their opponent in last night's games. After a scoreless first period, the Chicago Blackhawks came out strong over the Calgary Flames. David Jones scored the only goal for the Flames, resulting in a final score of 4-1. Patrick Kane got an assist and scored one of 3 goals within a 1 minute and 55-second time span for the Blackhawks. It was a disappointing night for Toronto sports fans after the Leafs took a loss against New York. Matt Zuccarello led the New York Rangers to a 4-3 win over the Leafs with only 58.3 seconds left in the game. The Rangers now have a 9-game winning streak. After stopping 26 shots, Leafs goaltender Jonathan Bernier says he still feels he left his team down. The Leafs play here at home tomorrow night against Colorado. The Sacramento Kings won their 3rd straight game, 107-101, against the Toronto Raptors last night. DeMarcus Cousins scored 10 of his 36 points in the fourth quarter. The Raptors were scoreless in the last 2 minutes and 51 seconds of the game. The team plays an away game against the Golden State Warriors tomorrow night. That's your sports update. Back to you, Alana.
Thanks, Sabrina. And now news closer to home. Police have confirmed that a fire in Peterborough's only mosque was deliberately set. The fire broke out at 11 p.m. on Saturday at the Kawartha Museum Mosque just an hour after members had left. Miriam Monsef, the first Muslim elected MP from the region, released a statement for her riding, saying these sorts of incidents are in no way reflective of our community as a whole. A crowdfunding campaign was set up to raise money to help rebuild the mosque and has already raised over $60,000. Here in Toronto, the TTC has increased security patrols in the aftermath of the Paris attacks. A spokesperson for the TTC said riders are encouraged to speak up if they see anything suspicious. You can expect to see uniformed TTC security in the next few days. Toronto police have also heightened their presence at downtown locations after Friday night. The teenager convicted of killing police constable Garrett Stiles will not serve time in jail. The 19-year-old will serve 9 years of supervision in a ruling handed out today. The driver of the vehicle that killed Constable Stiles was left a quadriplegic after the accident in June of 2011. The teen was 15 at the time and considered a young offender, so his name cannot be released. Now let's head outside with Brian Aguilar for our weather update. How's it looking out there, Brian?
Thanks, Anna. Break out your sunglasses because it's a beautiful day. As you can see, it's so gorgeous out right now. It's perfect for jogging, walking, and biking. After a couple of rainy days last week, we'll start this week with lots of sun and above seasonal temperatures. Today we'll have mainly sunny skies with calm winds. If you're going out this afternoon, make sure you'll just wear your light jacket because we'll have mild temperatures. We should be at 7 degrees this time of the year, but we're way above seasonal temperature as our high will be at 11 degrees. We're dipping down to 6 degrees tonight.
Now here's a look at your 5-day forecast. On Tuesday, it will be mainly sunny. We'll continue to experience above seasonal temperatures with a high of 8 degrees and a low of 7. On Wednesday, you'll be needing your umbrellas. We'll be hit with a Colorado low that will bring strong winds and rains taking aim at the region. We'll also bring warm air from the south that will give us mild temperatures, reaching a high of only 14 degrees with a low of 11. We'll continue to experience mild temperatures on Thursday. With a high of only 11 degrees, it will be partly cloudy with a chance of shower. We'll cool down overnight with temperatures dipping down to 3. You need to bundle up on Friday as we'll only hit 6 degrees as our high and -1 as our low. Cooler temperatures will prevail during the weekend. We'll have a high of only 4 degrees and a low of -1 on Saturday. That's your weather forecast for today. Now back to Elena Pranchek.
Thanks, Brian. That's what's making news for today. For Sked Live, I'm Alana Pranjic. See you tomorrow.